Okay, so now we have just like an open question time. So anybody have any questions, just feel on the material that we covered, just feel welcome to us. Okay, do we have the wireless mic?
Hi. So we were talking about stream entry.
Yeah. Yes.
This might just be a real easy yes or no question, but did the Buddha ever directly address whether or not householders can achieve stream entry?
Oh, yeah, many in the Buddha's time. Yeah, you find there's even like a whole chapter in the Anguttara Nikaya, the connected discourses of the Buddha on householder stream enterers. That's chapter number 55. In fact, householders can go up stream entry, once returning, non-returning. Even there are a few who attain arahatship, but it's said that if a householder attains arahatship, then just naturally and automatically, right after attaining, they'll renounce the household life and become ordained.
And then just really quickly, if I could, when you were talking about in your experience that you had known some monks that 10, 15 years in started to lose, you didn't use the word faith, but what was
it? Say, I didn't quite catch it?
I'm forgetting, the word is slipping my mind. What was it that day? Confidence, yes. And so are we to understand that these monks that lost confidence in the Dhamma and then left the practice didn't attain stream entry? Because had they attained stream entry...
Yeah, if they attained stream entry, then they would not have disrobed.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question about the last topic that you were covering, and it kept talking about how after, I guess, stream entry, they wouldn't be able to discern. There was you couldn't. I think the word was discern the sense spheres, the volition deeds, results. I'm just trying to figure out what the
Let me get the text.
I don't have the book with me, but I was trying to figure out what.
For which of the suttas is this?
It was the last one that you covered.
Okay, this portion.
Yeah.
For beings hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. That portion.
I think so, and so they. If they can't discern these realms of existence, sense sphere, form sphere, and the formless sphere, what is meant by discernment? I mean, can they just not even, are they not moved by it so that they can just continue their...
Yeah, okay, now I see what phrase. Okay, so if, Nanda, there were no karma ripening in the sensory realm, would sense sphere existence be discerned? No, this isn't referring to the beings who are going to be reborn there. He's just saying, it's a kind of idiomatic way of saying, would there be any such thing as sense sphere existence? But it's not that ordinary people can discern. Well, of course, we can discern the sensory realm, though we don't know that it's one of three realms of existence. At least we could discern one level within the sensory realm, the human plane. But here, it's just a way of saying, if there were no karma ripening in the sensory realm, would there be any such thing as sense sphere existence? But the beings who are going to be reborn in these realms don't have a direct perception of them, that they're going to be reborn there. Is that what you...
Yeah, just sort of a further understanding of that.
No, somebody with, like the Buddha, or with somebody who develops these super faculties of super knowledge, can discern the different realms of existence and see how karma is leading beings into these different realms. But ordinary people or ordinary living beings who haven't developed those faculties of super knowledge don't see the other realms.
Thank you.
Okay, Allison?
Bhante, I have a question. This question per se is for the nature of this is Sutra 75. The compassion here is action words. It's not a quality word. It's not kanuna. It's basically, you just said it is action, right? The compassion, the word compassion in Pali here.
What I said is that the word anukampa
Yeah, anukampa is
ordinarily signifies like what I call the active expression of compassion.
active expression.
Active expression, the way one puts compassion into action
it's active
by
work.
acting in ways that will help those who need some assistance.
So my question here is that in later sutra, it basically say we encourage these people to be encouraged, settled, and establishment in 3 different consecutive procedure. Yeah. And from what I see here, I have a question. I feel like it is almost like a missionary work. And in addition to that, the compassion in action, and lots of times it's come across like I'm helping, assisting.
Unhealthy existence.
I'm helping.
Unhelping.
I am helping.
I am helping, yeah.
I'm assisting.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, I want to ask the question is that how do you, as a Buddhist person, I often heard people has criticism about Christian people doing the doing the mission work,
yeah.
Doing the propaganda work. So how do you deal with that as a Buddhist person when I read this sutra? How can I interpret it seriously, thinking about, am I doing it out of compassion or am I doing it out of my own firm belief and my own personal agenda?
Okay, that's a good question. And it's a bit broader in its implications, much broader than what's actually said in the sutta here. But at first, I don't find any harm in the idea of doing missionary work in the sense, except that word missionary maybe has picked up some negative connotations because of the way missionary work has been conducted by some of the fundamentalists in the earlier centuries by the Roman Catholic Church, where you're given the choice of the Bible in one hand or the bonfire in the other. Literally, no, this was literally the case. And in more recent times, by some of the Christian evangelical groups that go over to other countries and other cultures with an agenda to convert them to Christianity, just to impose their brand of Christianity in order to get people to confess their faith in Jesus Christ. Of course, if they do that out of a firm belief in the truths of Christianity, that they want to save these people, and they do it in an ethical way by simply preaching their Christian doctrine, then, though of course I won't accept that for myself, but I say that that's a legitimate activity. Now, the way the Buddhists propagate the Dhamma is not by saying that you should believe in the Buddha, you have to believe in the Dhamma, you have to venerate the Sangha, but we teach the Dhamma as a way of helping people especially to understand their own suffering, the causes of their suffering, and to take practical measures that will help them to lead a good, wholesome life that will be beneficial to themselves beneficial to their community, beneficial to others. And then pretty much is left to others to determine whether they just want to adopt parts of the Dhamma for themselves or to make that full commitment to take the three refuges. Like we almost never say, unless we know somebody really well and think that the person doesn't know about going for refuge, I never say, it's time for you to go to it's time for you to go for refuge. And we're going to close the doors of this hall and you don't get out till you've gone for a refuge. No, that's not our approach, but we just teach the Dhamma and let people pick up what they can understand and practice, and then if they fail that strong enough conviction, then on their own initiative they can ask to go for refuge. Does that deal with the question? Did I leave something out? Of course, there was the second part that...
My question is, from your answer, I understand perfectly. My question is, oftentimes I find we as a human being, when we using a compassion to guide or to distribute Buddha's teaching, many times is not is mixed with our personal agenda. And that part is my question: how a person cultivate and practice to understand that part.
Whether they have a personal agenda or not. Yeah, that's something that each one has to determine for themselves. There's no simple formula that I could recommend, but one just has to say, is my concern really to be of benefit to others, or is my concern to push my belief system upon others? It's just something that came into the mind then. Yeah. Anyway, it escaped. Was you going to add something to that? Do you know how to turn that on? I don't think so.
Hello?
Yeah, now it's on.
Thank you, Monte. The point I've always enjoyed about finally reading, thank you for translating them, the Pali Canon is the Buddha left it up to somebody else. Like a great teacher from any tradition of philosophy, if I can stick the seed in your mind, if not to use the wrong seed, but in this case the seed of inquiry, you have your own discernment, you have your own agency, you have your own free will. I'm not going to tell you what to think. And so I do know there are certain groups that call themselves whatever. Could be Roman Catholic, could be Jewish, could be Buddhist. And they tell you what to think. They say, well, don't read this, read this. That's when I start shying away from, personally, anything, whether it have a religious, spiritual, or other context. If I can't challenge you with some questions and some thinking that might be new, then, well, I've never heard the Buddha say, or anyone else who I consider a legitimate teacher say, don't ask me that question. It may not be artfully said or skillfully said, and it might be gibberish sometimes because I'm not fully formulating it, but never have I ever heard a teacher in this tradition ever say anything like, so. That's why in taking the Buddha as taking refuge in the Buddha, I would say that the whole point is to try and emulate the best the best qualities of a person like that. And the Dhamma is everything else that could also be negative influences. Thank you.
One never sees the Buddha say that when addressing groups of people, you should accept my doctrine. But he always proceeds in a sort of methodical, skillful way, just teaching the Dhamma, but not imposing himself upon others. But there's one exception that comes to mind. Maybe some of you know this story. It was the Buddha's cousin Nanda who was at. This was Nanda's wedding day. Nanda, not Ananda, but another half-brother, the Buddha's half-brother named Nanda, was about to get married to a woman called, what was her name? Janapada Kalyani, which means like the beauty of the countryside. And so they invited the Buddha to come to the hall, the wedding hall, to recite a blessing. So you know the story. So the Buddha goes there with his alms bowl, and then they make the offering of the meal, and so on to the Buddha and the monks. And then after the meal, the Buddha recites the blessing. And then when everything is packed up, he takes his alms bowl and says it to Nanda, "Would you like to carry the bowl for me?" And Nanda is the younger brother, so he can't refuse the elder brother, so he says, "Yes, Venerable." So then they walk to the monastery, and then the Buddha turns to Nanda and says, "Would you like to become a monk?" And Nanda, being the younger brother, can't refuse his older brother. So though he doesn't want to become a monk, but he says yes. And then he gets to become a monk. Actually, it's a story I have to say I don't like too much. Even though Nanda eventually gets to become an arahat, but... Anyway. Was there some other question?
Auntie, I have a question.
Yeah.
If someone with a different sector or Buddhist background interpreted unwavering confidence in the Buddha as the first stage or the 8th stage of the Bodhisattva path, will it be far-fetched or will it be wrong?
I think this is referring to the 10 bodhisattva stages?
Yes, exactly.
There must be some counterpart to that in the teaching or doctrine of the 10 stages. I would assume it's probably the first. Yeah, it would certainly have to be the first stage, because that is supposed to be the stage where before that there are excuse me. There are 2 other major stages of the bodhisattva, in the bodhisattva system, in which the bodhisattva is not yet an Aryan, a noble one. So the first of the 10 stages is actually the first stage at which the bodhisattva becomes Aryan. So that would be the counterpart to stream entry in early Buddhism. So it would have to be at that stage that he gains unwavering confidence.
Okay, I'm not asking for counterpart. I'm asking based on Nikaya, and that is the person's interpretation. Unwavering confidence means first stage of Bodhisattva path.
Well, there's no bodhisattva stages in the Nikayas. Yeah, they're not mentioned in the Nikayas, so they come in maybe the earliest versions in the stage of sectarian Buddhism, and then it becomes fully developed in probably middle period Bodhisattva. No, even Nagarjuna mentions it. So maybe second stage Mahayana Buddhism, second or third stage. Historical stage, I mean.
The mic is intermittent.
Yeah, probably the battery is running low.
Bhante, this is a practice question rather than a question about the text. And I was interested in the distinction between karuna and anukampa.
Yeah.
And I believe that the reason for practicing karuna or even metta is to increase your receptivity and ability to I guess, shake or tremble with compassion.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there are practices that are perhaps a bridge that allow a practitioner to increase his ability in the moment to have anukampa, as opposed to there's karuna when you're sitting, and then you hope that you're more receptive when you're in the midst of compassion.
I don't know practices specifically prescribed in the text, but what would be sort of a useful bridge between the two? In fact, this is what, I used to use this myself, is to think of people afflicted with the different types of suffering, and then sort of search inside oneself and consider which are the groups of people who are afflicted with suffering that I feel the strongest resonance with and have the ability in some way to help. And so when one experiments in that way, then some people will be attracted to one type of, we call this engaged Buddhist work, some to another type, or some will have skills that are fitted for one kind of work, others for a different kind of work. In a way, this is how our organization, Buddhist Global Relief, took shape, since we considered, when we first considering establishing this organization, then we had some discussion, what can we as Buddhists do to alleviate suffering in the world, and what kind of people can we reach most effectively? And then we decided on the problem of chronic hunger and malnutrition. Yeah, but it's through, one could do that as a meditative exercise, visualizing. It doesn't have to be in detail, but more the way of considering different groups of people who are afflicted with different types of suffering. It can be poverty, war, people suffering from the ravages of climate change, racial injustice, oppression of immigrants, whatever, many, many different spheres. The maltreatment of animals, many different spheres of suffering in this world. Did Bowe have?
Bhante, other than the sutta, is there any other sutta mentioned in the Nikayas about the Buddha instructs his disciples to have anukampa?
Well, as I said during the class, this particular, we call it the framework of the sutta, one finds applied, filled in. It functions something like a template that we could fill in with different content. So one finds this in, I think it's in the Satipatthana Samyutta, where the Buddha says, that you in regard to your friends, companions, relatives, you should settle them, establish them in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Then I think one finds this in regard to the 7 factors of enlightenment, and then in regard to the 5 spiritual faculties. And then also there's the famous passage where the Buddha, this takes place after the first rains retreat that the Buddha has spent with the first, I think, 60 disciples. So after that, was it the first rains retreat? Yeah, I think he had 60 disciples at that time. So after the rains retreat, then he sends them out into the world. So he says, go forth, O monks, and wander in the world, for the good of the many folk, for the well-being of the many folk, for the happiness of the many folk. Then he says, lokanu kampaya, out of compassion for the world. for the good, welfare, and happiness of deities and human beings. And then I think in the Vinaya there are some passages where he instructs the monks to look after, if there are any monks who fall ill, that the monks should look after their fellow monks. Again, anukampang upadaya, out of compassion for them. And then I think in the Mahakassapa Samyutta, the Buddha praises Mahakassapa as one who is faring lokanukampaya, out of compassion for the world. Yeah, so one finds this in quite a number of suttas, that expression.
And were those 60 disciples after the first rain retreat arahats?
Yeah, they all become arhats. Because that was a time when the teaching had just broke out onto the world, so it was very fresh. And those who came to the Buddha were those who had very strong natural inclination towards the Dhamma. Things changed over the years. When the Sangha became prosperous and famous and eminent, then people would ordain in order to win respect, honor, to have a comfortable livelihood. But in the early days, the way of living was quite rough, and there was no special fame or honor attached to becoming a Buddhist monk.
Okay, Ananda, in this sutta we discussed today, was certainly not an arahat, but was he a stream enterer already?
I believe he would have been a stream enterer, because he became a stream enterer very soon after he ordained as a monk.
Did the Buddha ever tell his non-noble disciples to have compassion, anukampa?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of his instructions are just general instructions.
In which suttas?
I don't know, I'd have to go searching through. Okay, any other questions? Okay, then we'll call it a day. Okay, so remember we'll have the class next week. And then we'll continue with this sutta on bhava, the bhava sutta. Okay, so we stand and we do 3 half bows.